ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. I'm sorry we missed two sessions continuously. One because of journey to Mahakumbh and another because of what we call presentation of budget in the parliament. So today we will continue on our journey of Ishavasya Upanishad or Isha Upanishad. We saw some fundamentals of life in this Upanishad in the very beginning. First, we saw that Isa ka nivas, that the presence of the Supreme is everywhere. He is pervading the entire universe. And we should not get attached. We should live a life, comfortable life. We should live a life fulfilling our needs, because desires are infinite. So we should not get attached to what we call the comforts of life or the resources available in this universe. We should use them only for our needs. And then it further amplified that we should desire to live full life, 100 years. And we should celebrate life. And we should work hard during that period. We should discharge all our duties, but without the feeling of doership, without getting attached to any of those things. Then we will attain what we call the supreme bliss in this world. And if we are not able to do that, then we are killing ourselves. We are killing the Supreme who is sitting inside in each one of us. And then we will be living in what we call complete darkness or complete agyan, complete avidya. We will be living in absolutely, without any reprieve or knowledge. So this is what the beginning of this Upanishad says, the first three verses. Now verse number 4 to 7, in fact, it deals with what is supreme. Now this thing has come in the past on many occasions, but today we will discuss this in great detail, because this Upanishad gives very fantastic definition of what is supreme. Who is supreme? What is his characteristics? These things have been given in other Upanishads also. We saw that in Mandukya. We also saw briefly in Bhagavad Gita. But today we will see these things in great detail. Now here, one thing which I would like to emphasize is that since we are used to dualities in our life, we see the birth and we see the death. We see the sunrise and we see the sunset. We see the happiness and we see distress. We see love and we see hatred. So we live in a world of duality. And therefore we are quite used to those dualities. For us, it is not easy to understand that things can be without dualities. Things can exist without dualities. And that is where the definition of the Supreme becomes very important. Because all dualities which exist in this universe, they do not exist with the Supreme. And therefore, it is not easy for us to grasp his existence. And therefore, we should give attention to each of the keywords. Now we'll take some keywords here. The verse number 4, mantra 4. The first word is anejat. Anejat means that he is not moving, he is achal. He is standing in one place. And then it says manso jevio, that he is faster than the speed of your mind. Mind is the fastest traveling thing in this world. In a fraction of a second, we can reach the moon and the sun and Mars and New York and Calcutta and Mumbai. Uh, but now you see that the what you call inconsistency in terms of our language, that a, a thing which is achal, which is not moving, which is standing in one place, but then moving faster than the mind. And then there's a word in between, ekam, that he is one single, there's nothing, no duality there, not two, there's only one. Now let's understand this first. Ekam is now better understood by the humanity, because in the Nordic states and also to some extent in Western civilization, there is a new concept which has come up called oneness. Now they all agree. I met one of a great philosopher in Hungary, who has also propounded this philosophy, oneness, concept of oneness. Now that concept has come up in the West. They accept that universe is one single entity and everything is interconnected here. Nothing happens independently on its own. The things are completely interconnected. Like if you see a engine of a car, all the hundreds of parts inside the engine, they are interconnected and they work, in a very harmonious way. Similarly, the whole universe is interconnected, whether this is the speed of the galaxies or the moons or stars or the planets and the earth on which we live in, or the seasons that come and go, and the gravity, all those forces, which are millions of them, they work harmoniously to make it possible for the life to exist. So this concept is now better understood in the West, that ekam means that oneness, that the supreme power is one single entity which is pervading the entire universe. So that is ekam. Now we come to anejat and mansojivyo. Now achal and moving. Now how that is possible? First of all, if something is pervading the entire universe, it doesn't need to move, it is everywhere. For example, Akash. We can take Akash is the closest example in the visible world. Now, if I am sitting here and if I am sitting in New York, or I am sitting in Mumbai or in Delhi, Akash is there everywhere. It doesn't have to move. Wherever I go, Akash is available to me. Without Akash, I cannot even move. I can't even exist. So Akash is, you can say it is Achal, but at the same time available everywhere. But there is a distinction here, little bit distinction, which is very fine distinction. Why these two words have been given, and it has been amplified further. The reason is that, for example, we all have the supreme inside. The consciousness is part of that supreme. So if I think of Mumbai right away, I think because of that consciousness. So the consciousness first moves to Mumbai and then my thoughts move there. So the consciousness is here with me, it is sitting with me, it is Achal. But as soon as I think of Mumbai, it moves to Mumbai before I can think about Mumbai. So without that movement, it is not possible for me to reach Mumbai. I am sitting here, Achal, absolutely non-moving. I can go in my childhood, then my consciousness has to go there first. So that is what it is, that it is faster than the mind. The mind moves later on, before consciousness moves. If the consciousness is not able to move, mind cannot reach there. The mind is the secondary part. Consciousness is the first one. So this is how this mantra explains it. That ekam, then anejat and mansojavyo. That he is faster than the mind, though he is achal. So this is the explanation which I think is the correct explanation of this mantra. Then we have another Nen Deva. Now, approven, non-deva approven. That means that nobody knows my existence or my birth or my, when I came into being. Eh? Because he is the first one, he is Adi, he is Anadi, he came first in this universe. And that was also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10, verse number 2. Let me read that out. It says, न me vidu surgana prabhavam न महर्षय. That means मेरी उत्पत्ति को अर्थात लीला से प्रकट होने को न देवता लोग जानते हैं न महर्षि जानते हैं, क्योंकि मैं उनका भी आदि कारण हूं. अहम आदिर ही देवानाम महर्षि नाम च सर्वश. दैट मैं उनसे भी पहले इस संसार में आया हूं, तो मेरे को मैं किस प्रकार प्रकट हुआ हूं, इसको न देवता जानते हैं न महर्षि जानते हैं. Similarly, the same context has been mentioned here, that all the important universal powers which are called devtas, the important powers in this universe which are responsible for variety of functions, for example, sun or the moon or the wind or the rain. Now, all these powers do not understand my utpatti, my prabhav, when I came into being, because they came after me. Like, I cannot see the birth of my great grandfather or even my father, because I came after that. He came before me. And therefore, it is not possible for me to understand that origin. Similarly, here, this mantra is saying that it is not possible to understand the origin of the Supreme. It's very clear. We should not get into that dialogue, because even the gods, which are very powerful powers in this universe, even they do not understand how the God came into being or how the Supreme came into being. So this is what this mantra is saying. I think this was said in Bhagavad Gita very clearly. It has been said elsewhere as well, that we should not get into that debate that how the God came into existence in this universe, or how the Supreme came into existence into this universe. So these 4 words. Now let's go to a new one. Tat tat ejati, tat na ejati. Tat ejati, that is, it is not moving and it is moving. Now this is different from achal, and the difference between the two is different. We have to understand the subtle difference, that this supreme element is moving and not moving. That here the meaning is that since it is omnipresent, it is present everywhere, therefore it need not move, but it is also moving, like the space, Akash, available everywhere, and therefore it moves and it does not move. Wherever we go, we get the Akash. Similarly, wherever we go, we get the Supreme. So the Supreme here is comparable to Akash. But in the previous part of this mantra, it was Achal and Manso Jivyo. That means the consciousness has to reach before the mind can reach there. And therefore, it is faster than the mind. Though it is Achal, though it is sitting here, like I am sitting here, but my mind can reach somewhere else. But before mind reaches, the consciousness must reach there. So this is the subtle difference between these wordings of this mantra. So here it says that वह चलता है, वह नहीं भी चलता, वह आत्म तत्व चलता है, वह आत्म तत्व नहीं भी चलता. Because it is everywhere, it is omnipresent, therefore it doesn't have to move, but it also moves because it appears to us that it is moving. It is there wherever we go. Then the next wording is Dure Antike. Dure is that he is very far. Antike is very close. He is the closest and the farthest. Now, anything which is omnipresent is obviously it is the closest because it is there everywhere, but it is also farthest because it is infinite. It is far, far away in horizons, beyond horizons. So that is why these what we call dichotomies or this language of contradictions is the one which we need to understand the Supreme. That the Supreme is the nearest, but also the farthest. Basically, it means that he is present everywhere, and therefore, if we want to connect with him, we can connect in our own heart. But if we want to connect him outside, you can connect anywhere else as well. He is available. It is left to us how we connect. The connection depends on us. Like the electricity is flowing in the house. When you want to connect a particular bulb, you put the switch on and the bulb starts lighting. Similarly, the Supreme is omnipresent. And if we want to connect with him, we have to make an effort to put our bulb on. We have to put that switch on in our own self. Then we can connect here and we can connect elsewhere also. So the God, the Supreme is, uh, he is inside, he is farthest, he is the nearest, and he moves, but it doesn't move. So this is the language of, contradictions. Then the next word is Tat Anta Ashyam, that he is inside everybody. Sarvasya Bahyam, that he is outside everybody. Again, it is an expression which says that he is inside you, inside me, inside everybody else, but he is also existing everywhere, outside, beyond us. So this is the expression, why these expressions have been used. These expressions have been used because something which is not understood by our five sense organs. We have five sense organs which enable us to understand this world. If something is not understood by these sense organs, इनके द्वारा ग्रहण नहीं की जा सकती, then we need a language which can explain something. Now, that language is a language of lot of dichotomies, lot of contradictions, because that is the only language which can explain the Supreme, which is infinite, which is beyond the conception of this world. The conception of this world is based on dualities, while the Supreme is beyond dualities. And therefore, this verse says that he is one, he is achal, he is moving faster than the mind, he is inside, he is outside, he is nearest, and he is farthest. So all these things have been explained in this verse. And then it says that he controls all the powers. He controls rain, he controls wind, and he excels in excellence, surpassing everybody else. So then that shows the power of his excellence. That shows that he is omnipotent. The next word. Omnipresent and then omnipotent. And then if you use the word excellence, it means also omniscient, that he is sarvagya. He knows everything. So this verse itself explains variety of things. That Supreme is one, He is achal, but he is moving faster than the mind. He is inside each one of us. He is outside the entire universe which is existing. He is the nearest, he is the farthest, and he excels uh, in power, in qualities compared to everything else. And he controls all the great powers, including they have given example of rain and wind. So basically, this verse explains the Supreme in a beautiful way, though this is what we call sutra. Sutra means they only give some ideas about the truth, and then it has to be explained. And that is why these sutras are explained by great rishis, including Adi Shankaracharya. They explained these sutras in great detail. So this is the mantra number 4. Now mantra number 5. Now mantra number 5 is again, explaining the similar kind of says. The Supreme Lord walks but does not walk. It moves but does not move. We can say that. He is far away, but he is nearest. He is within everything, and yet he is outside everything. So we have covered these things already. Sarvashya Bahyat, it has come. Dure Antike, it has come. Dure Antike. So we have covered this mantra number 5 with mantra number 4. So these are some of the qualities which have been explained here. Now, before we go to mantra number 6, which is linked with it but slightly different, I would like to go into this aspect, the definition of the Supreme, in some other texts, like Mundak Upanishad. It gives a beautiful example. There's a verse there which explains it, and I'll read it in English. As the spider sends forth and spread its web and then withdraws it back, as a large variety of plants and herbs grow on the earth, as from every living human innumerable hairs spring forth from head and body, the same way everything arises in the universe from the Brahman, the indestructible. Now, this is a very beautiful verse, and it is often quoted that a spider, it doesn't take anything from outside. It takes out everything from inside, creates a web, and then it withdraws the web. The plants and herbs, they grow on the earth, they go back to the same earth. We, in our body, we have innumerable number of hairs in head and every part of the body, and they are all inside the body. So the Brahma, everything arises from that Supreme and then dissolves back into him. So this is explanation in Mundak Upanishad. It is 117, that the first chapter, first Mundak, first chapter and 7th verse. Then second Mundak, first chapter and first verse also talks about it. This is the truth. It says, it begins with, this is the truth. As from the blazing fire, thousands of sparks similar to the fire fly forth, thus are innumerable beings brought forth from the imperishable Brahman, and they return back to him. This is another example, that from the fire, millions of sparks come out and they dissolve back into the fire. Similarly, the imperishable Brahma gives birth to millions of humans and other life forces, and they all return back to him. Then Svetasvatar Upanishad, it talks about in 5.5, that is the fifth chapter, fifth verse. He is the cause of each and everything. He is the quality and form of all the elements. He is the cause of everything, quality and form of everything. He transforms all these elements into various forms and shapes, and he alone rules and resides in all of them. Now, this small verse explains everything, that everything comes from there. He is the cause of the causes, he is the quality of all qualities. He is transforming all the shapes and forms. He takes all the shapes and forms and transforms them. He alone rules, that he is the supreme power, and he resides in each one of them at the same time. He is there. So this is Svetasvatar Upanishad. Now let's also see what Bhagavad Gita said, which we already saw. This is in chapter 13, verse number, we'll take 13 and 15. With hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, and mouth everywhere, with ears everywhere in the universe, he exists pervading all. This is chapter 13, verse number 13. That his feet, his hands are everywhere, his eyes are everywhere, his heads are everywhere, his mouth is everywhere, his ears are everywhere, but he is without head, without ears, without mouth at the same time. So this is the what you call language of contradictions. And he exists pervading all. Then verse number 15 of chapter 13. He exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and non-moving. Being most subtle, he is incomprehensible by sense organs. Although far, far away, he is also nearest to all. So this is the similar kind of meaning has been conveyed in all these writings. Different Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, if you take Bhagavad Puran also, you will find similar description. So the fundamental truth here is that he is all pervading. Everything appears on that screen, like we have a TV set. On that, a film appears, a sport event appears, a musical event appears, on which the news reporters appear, and all kinds of films come. Films with love, films with hatred, films with murders, all kinds of plots. They appear, disappear, the screen remains as it is. Similarly, this whole universe is like a screen in which all these life forms appear, they disappear, they grow, they multiply, then they disappear. The whole prabhav and vilay, the udgam and transformation happens here. And it happens on a base. The base is the supreme. Supreme is the foundation of all that, where things happen. Now, this is what we have to understand. It is often said that we see a lot of variety in this universe. We see infinite number of varieties. Like each human being among us is different. You will not find two identical human beings. Even two, what we call twins, are not identical in that sense. Even if they look identical in their conduct and behavior, they will not be identical. So if we live into this world of variety, and if we understand this variety, we enjoy this variety, then we will keep coming and going back into this world. But if we start looking at the unity behind this variety, that there's one thread which connects everything, that there's oneness, there's ekam, which is there, which is connecting this whole, all the dots in one go. If we start understanding that, then we reach that supreme, then we transcend this world and become liberated and become one with the Supreme. So this is the distinction. This is a Devalaya. This body is a Devalaya. Now, if we look at it as a body, as a sharir, and we look at everybody else as sharir, then we will live in this world. We will continue to come back here. After death, we will come back. But if we look at it at Devalaya and everybody else as Devalaya, that they are the place of God, where the God lives, then we connect the dots and find oneness everywhere. Then we will become one with the Supreme. So this is the distinction. This distinction we should understand, that once we start realizing this oneness behind this uh, tremendous diversity, then only we are reaching closer to the Supreme. Now, that oneness realization is not that easy, because as Lord Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, that my Maya is very powerful and it doesn't allow people to surpass it easily. So we have to surpass that Maya slowly, slowly, by understanding the Ekam, slowly, slowly, that oneness which is connecting this whole universe, that nothing moves without interconnection. So that interconnectivity has to be understood. And then we understand that all these transformations are happening on one single platform, which is called the Supreme. And then we are reaching closer to Him. Now, this is what the mantra number 6 is about. It says that he who systematically sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his part and parcel, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. Now, this is not easy. This is absolutely difficult. That seeing everything in the Supreme, seeing everything in your own self like your own self, is not easy. So that's why yastu sarvani bhutanyanya nyanya nam paschati sarvabhutesu chatmanam tatone vijutsu supe. That once you are able to establish this relationship, that this whole universe is one single entity and everything is part and parcel of that entity, and the Supreme Lord is living in everybody. Everybody is like a Devalaya. And we start connecting those dots and realizing that oneness, then we reach close to the Supreme, then we are with Him. So, this is the meaning of mantra number 6. So, you see, in these 6 mantras, the entire secret of our life has been described. How we should live, how this universe conducts, what is the basis of this universe, and how the diversity appears from one single force, like the millions of variety of gold ornaments appear from gold, or millions of waves, infinite number of waves appear from the ocean. Similarly, in the same fashion, from the Supreme, all these, varieties, all these multiplicities come into existence. And we also contribute to that multiplicity. For example, we are creating new materials. We have created so many new materials which we use for making aircrafts and missiles. And now we are just doing what we call different combinations. We join this metal with this metal, we mix them, and we create a new combination, and then a new metal appears. This is what we create, a new variety. So in this universe, all the things, if you keep mixing and changing their ratios, you will keep creating new varieties. And that is what human beings are all about also. Our seeds also are slightly different, and therefore we keep creating new varieties of human beings every time. Now, the what we call the manifest part is different, but there's one single entity which connects all living beings, that is consciousness. Without that consciousness, there can be no species of life, not even the nature, because even the nature, these five great elements also have what we call mineral regime, a low level of consciousness. So that consciousness connects these five great elements, which is we call Prakriti or nature, and then it connects all the species of life in whatever form they exist in this world, and that is what we have to understand. And once we understand that, then we will realize that everything is Devalaya. This whole universe is the house of the Supreme. There is nothing beyond that. And once we have that feeling, how can we hate anybody? We cannot hate anybody. How we can kill anybody? We cannot kill anybody. How can we deceive anybody? We cannot do that. Because once you see that everybody is part of the Supreme, everybody is divine, the divinity exists in every single species of life, we will not do that. I think that is the foundation of, for example, the Jainism, that the ahimsa, that you cannot kill even the smallest of the small creature in this world. It may be a small insect, or maybe a fly, or it may be a mosquito, because they have also divinity in themselves. Without that divinity, nothing comes into being. So this is what these three mantras, first they define the Supreme, and then they tell us that if we can realize that divinity in ourselves, in our own conduct, then we will become one with Him. And now let's go to the next mantra number 7, which is connected to mantra number 6. Now, one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, they are one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So, what is the true knowledge? True knowledge is to understand this spiritual spark which is there everywhere. That every part of this universe is Devalaya, every part of this universe is pervaded by the Supreme. Once we start realizing this, then the whole philosophy we have, our thinking process will undergo a tremendous change. And we will take the things, we will accept the things as they exist. We will not judge them, we will not comment them, we will not, try to change them. People who are trying to change this world, they are actually not accepting the reality of the Supreme. The Supreme pervades everywhere. And therefore, whatever changes people are doing, they are also doing because of the inspiration coming from that supreme force inside themselves. So that kind of thing we have to accept, but it does not mean that we passively accept it. No. Now that is misinterpreted, that we should accept as they are. No. Then we become passive. We have to. That is why the Bhagavad Gita came into being. And Arjun could have said, okay, now we should accept the reality. The Kauravas have, we surrender everything to them and we go back to jungles. That's why Krishna came into being. He says, no, you have to fight for the good. That is what your spark should tell you, that धर्म के लिए हमें संघर्ष करना पड़ेगा, and उस संघर्ष को करते हुए whatever comes we should accept. So this is what the reality is, that for the good of this universe, for the establishment or for keeping the dharma in place, that the basic laws of the universe are not disturbed, we should keep our karma. That is why the verse number 3 of this, mantra number 3 of this Upanishad says that you should keep doing. You cannot uh, stop doing things. You should do your kartavya, you should do your duty. And that duty is that you should fight for dharma. That is one of the most important duties in this universe. So it does not mean that you become idle, but it also means that you realize the divinity everywhere, and you realize that uh, there are three different qualities of nature which appear in all the human beings and all the species of life. And because of that, every human being is different. But from our point of view, we fight for what we consider as good for the humanity, and we live our life fighting in that way. So sometimes these are misunderstood, these things, that we should accept whatever comes. No, that is not the meaning. That is the worst interpretation of these mantras. You should accept whatever it comes, but you must continue your efforts for bringing the good in the society, bringing the good in yourself, bringing the good, the dharma should prevail. That should be the approach, and that is our duty. So this is what I would conclude here up to mantra number 7. So these 7 mantras are actually given us the whole philosophy of life and all the secrets behind this universe. So this is so deep. The Upanishad Ishavasya is so deep, like Mandukya is so deep. Similarly, they are very deep, and sutras only give us the hint. Then rest we have to understand. We have to discover for our own selves. This is what we are supposed to do, and then we adopt that in life. So we should realize that this whole universe is pervaded by the Supreme. All the manifestations appear on Him. All the different multiplicity is part of that process, and they all dissolve into that the Supreme ultimately. And this whole process keeps continuing. But the divinity exists everywhere. We should realize that thread which is connecting the, like a mala, connects all the flowers. The mala is invisible, but there could be no mala without that thread. That thread is the one which binds it together. Similarly, it is the thread of the Supreme which binds this whole universe together. Because of that power, the moon moves according to his dharma, and the sun moves according to his dharma, and the earth moves according to his dharma, and the whole universe is in place. And this is what we should understand. Thank you very much.